Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. It has been a while. How's everybody doing? My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we are starting our 5th year of this program of football season. And I am joined in the studio today by, of course, our top-tier producers, Paul Russo and Nate Sharman. And I'm so happy to be back. It's been a trying year for myself, a lot of health issues, and we're going to just kind of dip our toe in the pool, so to speak, of football and talk about sports betting and say farewell to the studio that we're in now as we prepare to move into a brand new, upgraded, deluxe Cadillac Lexus Edition studio in Seneca Falls here. So let's get it all started off today with sports betting in 2022. And for those of you that are in New York like us, we have mobile betting in full swing. They gave out 9 betting licenses, 9 different apps. I don't use that many myself, but it's kind of small compared to other states, and because it's the beginning of football season, which is the highest engagement time of year for sports bettors in general, that means promos. And for those of you that have maybe already begun mobile betting, you may have gotten sign-up bonuses and things like that, but there are plenty of promos for the football season. And I'm going to ask you guys right off the bat, is there any type of promo that you found interesting you want to share maybe?
Yeah, I know, at least first and foremost, Sean, good to have you back.
Thank
I know
you.
it's been, as you mentioned, it's been trying for you, but it's good to have you at least back here physically in studio here one
Yes,
final go around.
I like Seneca Falls.
And, but
Hopefully we'll get the train to go by.
well, I don't know about that. I don't know. That's usually a hit and miss thing with us here in the studio lately, but, yeah, in terms of, promos themselves, I know I'm currently looking at what we'll call the Green Sportbook.
Okay.
And a lot of their promos right now, at least for what they're offering me, are kind of tied in with other things. So, if, I bet a 2-leg MLB parlay, you have a profit boost on whether it's college football or NFL. They're offering me both. So,
That's good.
but there's nothing in terms of, I'd say, maybe an outright one where you can just opt in and get some sort of boost in terms of just a regular, say, like flat bet of a football game, NFL or college. I think maybe that ties in a little bit. You mentioned, right? I mean, we're now in month pretty much 8 of mobile sports betting. I think,
since January.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it now is, as you mentioned, right, there's 9 licenses. Like you, I really only stay within about 2 of them, give or take. Sometimes I venture off into a third, but really I'm kind of only in 2 of them. So I think as we slightly alluded to there a little bit, probably have used up any of the fresh boosts that they're probably giving out to new users at this point.
Yeah, so there are promos that they're tie-ins with major sports programs and personalities, and they give out promos to pretty much everybody. I mean, that's like a national campaign, assuming that sportsbook's legal in your state. I'm up to 4 sportsbooks.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of what I would call small market sports that I like to wager on that are only available at certain places. So, but, I do know earlier this summer, for example, that the Green Sportsbook was offering the Cardinals to win the Super Bowl at 50-1 when the market was about 30 or 35-1. And they were doing it both locally and online. Yeah. So those types of promos are usually well publicized. Yeah. And then every once in a while they throw in these little surprise ones. And Nate, did you have one you wanted to share?
Yeah, I also echo Paul with having those MLB boosts. I oftentimes hit those too as well. But the biggest one I like is I think it's Ross Tucker has a boost on DraftKings for the Bills and the Eagles both to make the playoffs at even money. I had a max $25 bet, so that's all I could put on it, unfortunately. But still pretty good odds. I would say the Bills are most likely. I don't want to say a shoe in, but in the Eagles, especially with the extra team now in the playoffs.
The last time I checked, the Bills were minus 200 to make the playoffs.
Right.
So I don't know if that's moved because a lot of money's come in on the Bills.
I think the only way they miss the playoffs is
Injury.
an injury, right?
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, to
Go ahead.
piggyback off of that, the same sportbook I alluded to earlier, I forgot, had one for, mentioned playoffs, right? The Ravens getting boosted to plus 170, so quite the interesting one there because I know I don't want to get too far deep into like our discussions for here in a little bit, but you'll get a conference or division like the AFC North where I think we all probably have a little bit of a different opinion on it. To me, I don't think it's as open as maybe some people kind of think. I do kind of lean on the Ravens maybe in that division this year. But
I think
something
we're all going to find out here shortly
Yeah.
that the three of us have very different
Yeah.
opinions on the NFL this year.
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to be more aligned in the college preview
Right.
than the pro, but it's a pretty wide variety of takes in the NFL this year. So before we get to that, one more thing, talking about betting here in New York or betting this year.
Yeah.
Can you guys might be interested in sharing a positive, or possibly negative experience betting? I'll go first.
Sure. Yeah.
I will say that surprisingly, how quickly smooth my withdrawals from the sports books have been.
Yeah.
They have not asked me to, when you sign up, you give them all your information and, for tax purposes and whatnot. So they didn't make me send electric bill or, holding my ID up next to my head or anything like that. And I went in with PayPal, went out with PayPal, very smooth, under an hour, multiple times. This is what I love about regulated sports books. They do have their drawbacks, but the experience for the most part has been, other than one of the major sports books not letting me participate in their service, which is a whole nother story in itself, but all the other ones that do let me bet have been very good. So I've had a pretty positive experience.
Yeah, I think, for me to piggyback off of that, I certainly agree with you. I think, I've had pretty quick turnarounds on any cash out I've had. I think the longest one I've had was about 2 days, somewhere in like not even like a full 48 hours. I want to say it was probably closer in the 40-hour range, but that was also fairly early on actually in the process when that happened. I think it was, I want to say really at the end of February, give or take, during conference basketball tournament season for NCAA when that happened. I will say this, the one, if there is a negative, and this is maybe just from a specific side of me, which is the motorsports betting side, I know.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Certain books only offer certain things. I know. I obviously allude to the one books. They tend to do, obviously in NASCAR, right? We have Cup Series, Xfinity Series, Truck Series. Usually Cup Series where you really get your better options, whereas Xfinity and Truck tend to only allow you to really get the winner more times than not. That being said, through the summer they have improved. I don't want to, again, go too far deep down the topic here, but I know a few weeks ago with the Richmond race weekend, I was able to bet Truck Series top fives, which was a nice change of pace. So hopefully that's something that they're improving. I know, like I said, certain books are different. I know my one friend actually uses one of the books, and it's pretty much no matter what motorsports series you have, they have literally every option. Whereas opposed to, my preferred one, I don't have that, unfortunately. But like I said, I think that's something just seen through the summer that they've been improving.
That I like to bet what most people would consider to be niche sports.
Yeah.
And there's only one book that I can bet with that offers Australian rules football.
Right.
And it's the biggest market in Australia, as far as betting goes.
Yeah.
But I have to wait for that one book to put their lines out.
Right.
And, it's frustrating because I'll see lines at another book, but I won't have access to.
Right. Yeah.
But Nate, any good or bad experiences you want to talk about?
Yeah, the best experience for me has been with the support or help desks. They've been really, really good. If I have any questions about anything, usually under 24 hours, they're returning your question and being very helpful. So I think that's kind of the most thing I've seen. Everything else for me has been pretty much smooth sailing.
That's good. My wish, I guess is the best word I can use, when we got regulated online sports betting, was that one of the best pieces of gambling advice I ever read was in Amarillo Slim's book, poker book, and he said in the first chapter, if you're going to gamble, make sure that if you win, you're going to get paid.
Right.
And that's, New York is one of the worst states to be a sports bettor in, because you have no access to offshore books. The offshore books will not do business with New York residents. But you are basically putting 100% trust in the offshore book that they are going to pay you, because you have no recourse if they decide not to.
Right.
So I always believed that the average sports bettor should be able to put $100 down on a sports bet and then get paid if they win. Now, I know they limit some of the props and stuff to like $50, and the promos, they might say max bet $25 or $50, but you get paid.
Right.
And that's the beauty of this. I know that when we go to the casino, we'll get paid. I know when I place a bet online through one of these sports books, I'm going to get paid. And for those of us that have a profit motive, they're trying to win money doing this, that's very important, obviously. So I think overwhelming, it's been a pretty good year. There have been, I know some people have been limited, some of my friends that are very serious sports bettors, but I feel we have an upcoming episode that we'll do on how to manage your sportsbook profile to keep you from getting limited right away, and keeping your account, let's just say, liquid.
Right.
So you can make large wagers if you want to, because I'm a big futures bettor, and I'm not going to get my account limited over, a strikeout props when I want to place, $100 on a team at 30-1 to win the Super Bowl, so I don't want to lose that potential. So, but yeah, it's been a great experience. So with that being said, why don't we get started with the NFL?
Yeah.
And we have divisions to go through. Oh, these are my topics here that we've got. Surprise, surprise, the Bills are the favorites. And I'm going to preface this by saying the last two seasons, I had a Bills Super Bowl future at 35-1, and then last season I had them at 14-1, and of course they lost the last 13 seconds. But they were a team that was capable of getting to the big game.
Right.
It's very interesting how everybody is kind of on board with them being the unanimous favorite. Yeah. Usually it's a little split. Also, the other topics that I think are important, the 18-week season, this is the second year of the 18-week season with one bye. And the reason I bring this up is because all of the preseason hype and fantasy previews and NFL previews just automatically assume everybody's going to be healthy for 18 weeks. Yeah. And we all know that's not going to happen.
No. We already are seeing it just in the preseason itself.
Yes. So the reason for me that's a big futures bettor is that you may find tremendous value betting a future 4 weeks into the season as opposed to betting it now. So you need to think long term. Now, if you're somebody that likes to play survivor pools or something like that, you've already mapped out your season, or you should have if you haven't. But just be aware that there's, you need to look throughout the season for value, not just now. And then finally, AFC versus NFC strength. I think, my opinion, is that the AFC obviously is much stronger than the NFC. I don't know if there's a wager for AFC or NFC to win the Super Bowl, but I would put AFC as a much higher favorite to win. Of course, anything can happen in one game. But I think the NFC is wide open. I don't think there's a dominant team in the NFC. You may not agree, but I think there's a lot of value in betting futures in the NFC because there's one of many teams I think that could make the big game. And those are my big themes going into the year. If you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, so I certainly agree. I know for me anyway, because I do, I still play fantasy as well as, doing sports betting and stuff like that. But, for me, now that we, as you mentioned, year 2 of the way we have it where it's 18 weeks, the one bye, For me, I do tend to wait a couple weeks to do a futures bet when I do them at this situation, only because, you mentioned, right, how, if you look at the major newsmakers for sports, right, they do tend to kind of overlook the fact that, it's only one bye week out of, pretty much what, a quarter, a third of the year, give or take, of a season, right? And for me, anyway, the way I look at it too, I guess, in this sense, right, is I prefer a team to have their bye week. Obviously, the more middle, the better. But if they are in the middle, I prefer them to just have it later on than in that situation. To me, when you get a team that has a bye week, say week 4, it's a long, long uphill battle at that point going forward, just in terms of trying to keep everybody healthy, which that's definitely not going to be the case. And hopefully at that point, right, just survival, right? Football is a nutty game in and of itself. Anyway, you bring up a good example, honestly, is that Bills-Chiefs game last year where, I mean, it was a gunslinging showdown that did come down to the final, 10, 13 seconds, whatever it ended up being.
It's, I mean, you can even go back to the last couple of Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
You think about the Rams and the Bucks playoff game last year, and the Bucks were way ahead, and the Rams came back. You can think about the Rams and the Patriots Super Bowl, which ended up being like 13-3, but that game was, I mean, in a single game, the variance is so high.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we find in college where the teams are not as handicapped as much as the pros, we have more of these upset situations, but if you're betting on a championship future, that you just getting to the Super Bowl, first of all, you can hedge your bet so you can lock in profit regardless of who wins. But there's also a very high variance of outcome in one game. You can just go back through the years, and there's certain teams, like I think the opposite of an upset would be the Chargers, San Francisco in '94, where Steve Young threw, 18 touchdowns or something like that. Stan Humphries game.
Yeah.
But I think it's a crazy year of the NFC. I think a surprise team can make the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Bills, as mighty as they look, it's just one game.
Right.
And a lot of things can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, I do agree with you as well.
Jerome Boger could happen.
I do. I do agree 100% too with what you're saying. I think the talent pool in the AFC is just so pretty much wide and deep this year compared to the NFC. And that's, as you mentioned, it comes down one game. I don't want to slight the NFC in the slightest here. Obviously, you could. I mean, I don't.
Again, the other thing about a future is, we're talking about the end game here as opposed to the regular season, because those are two different betting schools.
Right.
But a team that maybe did not play good early in the season and is really on form at the end of the season, they may have gotten a player back from suspension or from injury, or there's a week 4 trade or a week. I think they can trade up to week 7 or 8 now.
About to say, I think the deadline's still hanging out.
It used to be the
range.
4th week, but somebody gets traded and changes a team's chemistry or their offensive playbook, so there's a lot of that uncertainty equals in the betting market equals opportunity.
Right.
So uncertainty always equals opportunity. So you are looking for to make money in sports betting. You're looking for undervalued entities.
Yep.
And that's where you're going to get your winning bets. So it's interesting. Let's just start with the divisions and we'll work our way through. Yeah. And I put all these up here, and we'll start with what is it, AFC, NFC West? There we go.
I wasn't sure which division you wanted to go with.
Oh, it didn't really matter, but I went west to east just because I wanted to save the Bills for last, but here we go. So we got the NFC West, the Rams, 49ers, Cardinals, and the Seahawks. And the AFC West, Chiefs, Bolts, Broncos, and Raiders. So my hot takes for these divisions, the Rams, I really look for them to take a step back.
Yes.
My opinions, the Rams, Stafford, every year it's going to be harder and harder for him to stay healthy. They got a tremendous boost from Cam Akers. It'd be interesting to see if they can carry that for a full season in the run game. Their defense is going to be very good, but I feel like the quality of they're going to get a tougher schedule this year. I feel like the quality of their competition is going to be better. So you're looking at a team that was like 12-5, 11-6 last year. I think this is going to be a 10-win team. I don't like them for the Super Bowl or the division. Just there's not value there. And the 49ers, I think they're going to be a good team. I just don't think Trey Lance is ready to take a team to the Super Bowl or to win a Super Bowl.
Right.
So maybe on a division bet for them, but and then once again they've got to stay healthy. They're Debo, Juszczyk got to stay healthy. The Cardinals are a team that Cliff Kingsbury, his teams always seem to fade in the second half. They got to have healthy J.J. Watt on the defense. It's a team that should compete for a playoff spot. I don't know if they've taken that next step. And Seahawks are a mess. The Geno Smith experience, I really thought that they would have traded for a quarterback by now.
Yeah.
I think they have decided to rebuild. And I'm not saying they're tanking the season, but it's going to be they're going to have to win games like 17-13. And we all know how the Bills did with that type of setup for years and years.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I mean, to piggyback the Seattle portion a little bit of that too, just from, I guess, a football side of things, just I don't know what they see in the draft next year quarterback-wise because I don't see anything, but that's obviously a different discussion for a different time. Do agree, though, with the Rams wholeheartedly. I mean, no matter what here, you see – and for me, it's not so much, I think, a matter of guys like Steph or anything like that, only because, like, we know that there's going to more than likely be some sort of regression to a degree. But, for me, it's a guy like, say, Cooper Kupp, who obviously is going to be public enemy number one for defenses now. It's guys like on defense, like Von Miller, not on the team anymore, Jalen Ramsey, et cetera, that I think it's little things kind of like that, and not to make them sound like they're not superstars as they are or anything like that, but it's, the whole here, the whole there type stuff that I certainly agree with you. Part of me feels like, if you're going to do a division, I think it comes down to take your pick, I guess, in a way, if you want to only do one of, say, 49ers or Cardinals. I think maybe it's a little bit of me still kind of hoping to see Kyler Murray take just that step to a degree, I think. Does it happen? I don't know. To that end, right, the health aspect of Kyler Murray comes into it a little bit as well. So I don't know. I think the 49er defense is a little bit better than people even are giving them credit for anyway, period.
They're stout.
I know, to me, they don't necessarily get turnovers, but they don't allow you to score, and that's the main thing, number one on a defense that I look for at the end of the day. But
Nate?
I'm 100% on board.
You have any thoughts on that division?
Yeah, just going to be interesting to see with Kyler Murray. He's happy now. He's got his money and got his video game contract out of there, so got that out of the deal. So at 35-1, I think that's a good price for the Cards. Interesting without Hopkins, right? The first 6 or 8 games.
Yes.
So that's interesting too. And then like what you said with the Cardinals, how they always kind of.
That's a great example of a team that you might, if you might bet on them for the Super Bowl at a week or two before he comes back,
right,
you might get a better number than that.
You could get a 45 number, right?
Or 50, depending on how they play. So it's you just shop every week. If you can remind yourself once a week to just sit down and look at the futures, you may find some great value. So on the AFC West, which I think is probably the best division in football, and they're going to kind of cancel each other out, but it would not be impossible. It's very likely that 3 of these teams make the playoffs, and technically it's not impossible that all 4 make the playoffs. However, I think one of these teams is probably going to suffer a regression due to injury or something along those lines.
Yep.
So the Chiefs, they got rid of their most irreplaceable player, in my opinion, in Tyreek Hill. I think they could have, if they had to replace Kelsey, if they had to replace Mecole Hardman or any of their other receivers, If they had to replace Edwards-Helaire, I think they could have replaced any of those guys. But obviously they have Mahomes, at a 10-year contract, so he's not going anywhere. But the one guy that I think they really couldn't replace was Tyreek Hill. And so apparently they've got somebody new. I actually, off the top of my head, I can't remember who's on the receiving corps, but
Juju Smith-Schuster.
Oh, that's right, Juju Smith. So they've got a big challenge. I mean, they've got a tough division schedule and a tough schedule in general. It's going to be Andy Reid is going to have to dial up some new wrinkles.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's going to be a long year for them. It seems like their defense was aging. I've not done a deep dive on the defensive roster, but none of these teams are way ahead of the others. I'll just put it that way. So then I'm going to move on to San Diego, LA Chargers, the LA Superchargers, the SoFi Chargers, the Bolts. Big media favorite to win the Super Bowl. The coach is, what's his name of the coach of the Chargers? Staley? No,
Yes.
Staley.
Yeah.
Big analytics guy, the go for it on fourth down guy in his own 30. Calling the timeout famously at the end of that overtime game. This is another team that seemed to always have wide receiver injuries. Some of their secondary would have injuries. Bosa was hurt last year. If they stay healthy and they don't get too crazy with the unorthodox game calling, I mean, there's a line between coaching to win and coaching not to lose, and I'm against coaching not to lose. But he has made some very unorthodox decisions. Where on the other hand, a coach like Sean McVay game plans his game and he does not make any adjustments until halftime. And I think that is also wrong. I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere. The Broncos, new ownership, another Walmart team. The new owners are related to the Walmart families. Russell Wilson is mile high, and Melvin Gordon needs to stay healthy. He gets hurt every year, it seems. I'm not high. I think the Broncos are the least in this division. They really, it'll be interesting to see how they do defensively. They're always tough at home. I feel like this team is very overvalued. It doesn't seem like there's much that makes me want to bet on them.
Yeah.
And if Russell gets hurt, forget about it. And then finally, the Raiders this is my team. When I say that, I'm not a Raiders fan at all, but this is a team that I'm very, 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 very big on this year. Undervalued. I already have them at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. I have them at plus 800 to win the division. I feel like this team is going to take a huge step up offensively this year. I mean, they had an interim coach last year. Didn't get a lot done offensively as they could have. They had a lot of nail-biter games, and they basically had to win a bunch of games in a row at the end of the season just to get in the playoffs. I feel like this year is going to be different again, assuming they stay healthy. But the defense is back, and I just think they're improved on both sides of the ball. If the coach doesn't make any huge errors and they stay healthy, I feel like Raiders are definitely a playoff team, and I really think they have a legit shot at this division. So I'll leave it to you guys.
Yeah.
You may disagree, so.
No, it seems as though out west, at least, we are in agreement, at least at the moment. I do want – I'm just so sorry with the Raiders. I think, this is a team now that we get out of we'll call it the Gruden era here, obviously, and you get out of the perceived dark cloud, especially what surrounded that team last year. And they're trying to more or less get guys out from the Gruden era, playing-wise as well, player-wise, that have happened. Again, maybe this is a bit of me just being a Derek Carr kind of guy and a little bit maybe hoping that, again, I don't know necessarily if he has any more steps left to take, but I look at the Raiders. I mean, the way they ended the year last year, they had a ton of momentum going for themselves anyway. I think the only thing I personally worry about is McDaniels. I don't know how well the coaching aspect of things is going to go. I'm with you. I'm not a fan of Denver this year at all. It's not so much to me actually anything really. I guess maybe Russell Wilson oriented. They already are down one of their top 3 wide receivers in Tim Patrick for the year.
Yep.
We've seen over the course of his career, Cortland Sutton can be pretty hit and miss, and obviously Jerry Jeudy. Interesting year last year for him to say the least as a rookie. And then the other 2 teams, right? Chargers, and I didn't want to fully interrupt, but didn't Herbert also end up having a hand issue towards the end of the year last year?
He did. He didn't miss time, but every week it was like, is he going to play? Isn't he going to play?
Yeah. So to me, question marks there. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill at the time, the trade didn't make any sense to me, and it still doesn't make any sense.
They didn't want to pay him, and he got his bag in Miami.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I am with you though. I think if obviously I don't know about the Super Bowl exactly, but division, at least what I'm looking at, the numbers are fairly similar here at 60-1-ish and everything like that. For the Raiders, I love the black and silver this year.
Yeah,
I really do.
I really think. I mean, I will honestly say, in my opinion, the Raiders gave the Bengals their toughest game in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they were on the verge of winning that game. So, and we'll talk about the Bengals in a minute.
Right.
But I really am a big fan. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
Broncos country, let's ride.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
I just think Russ comes back with a vengeance this year.
Yeah, I mean
that's possible too, right? I mean, we fail to, I think, probably kind of look at things sometimes from the mentality aspect of things.
Yeah, the Broncos have consistently challenged or beaten the Chiefs at home over the last few years, which is the Chiefs obviously being the class of the division over that time period. So maybe they have it. Maybe they figured it out. And that's why they play the games, as they say.
Mm-hmm. I just think Russell Wilson just wants to get that MVP. He's never
for sure.
gotten a vote before.
He wants to get the recognition. He could have moved into a bigger media market. He went from a tiny media market to a not so tiny media market.
Right.
But, more power to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He'll get his chunky soup bag sooner or later. So I guess we're moving to the South. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right. So we're going to talk about got the Brady's, the favorite in the NFC, which I am not sold on, and I feel like these numbers for the Super Bowl and the division are super, super overvalued. They're too low. They're not attractive to me at all. I am not a Todd Bowles fan. I thought he was a horrible coach with the Jets. He may have done wonderful things with the defense in Tampa Bay, but Bruce Arians was a defensive coach as well, so they may have worked together on that. For him to be a head coach, we will see. We'll see how it goes. And obviously, you don't even have to – you can talk about the age factor, the ageless wonder Tom Brady, but just the wide receivers. How many games is Mike Evans going to play?
Right.
How many games is Godwin going to play? How many games is Cameron Brake going to play? The Saints are a question mark, and I'm not a believer in Jameis, famous Jameis, although he did have eye surgery. So his interceptions will be much more in focus this year. But I do like the number 40-1, 50-1 on the Saints. They have a legit shot at this division, assuming their defense is going to be great. The New Orleans defense is going to be great. The offense is a huge question mark. You've got Alvin Kamara. If they decide they want to suspend him, they can suspend him. But they're saying they're not going to do it till next year. But
yeah, that's what I saw too.
Yeah, they could change their mind. The NFL can do it any time they want. And then you have Taysom Hill was not able to stay healthy when he was given a shot to be number one. And they're talking about using him at tight end more, which I don't think is a good idea. Not Michael Thomas is a question mark as always. So I don't know. The Panthers are an interesting team. I think Baker is underrated. I think he got a raw deal in Cleveland. He played hurt last year, really barely able to get on the field. and he gave his all. He got a lot of, commercials and stuff, and I discount that part of the equation. I'm just talking about he wants to win. He hates to lose. He has a football IQ. He can make reads better than Darnold can. Whether that's going to be a difference for Carolina, I don't know. They need CMC to be healthy all year long, but this could be a playoff team. It really could be a playoff team. 125-1 to win the Super Bowl. I like that. 11-1 to win the division. I think I took a ticket on this at 15-1. My opinion is, if a team is 30-1 or higher to win the division, it's worth a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
But last year, I took 2 division futures in the middle of the season. I took the Bengals when they were 3-0 to win the division at plus 850, and they won. I took the Panthers when they were 3-0 to win the division at plus 1,000, and they lost. Mm-hmm. So a team gets off to a good start. Remind you to check those division futures, see you might find some value. And then we have the Falcons, which everybody is, and the public is unanimously suggesting are the worst team, although the Texans have worse odds. But yet everybody thinks Kyle Pitts is the second coming of the tight end. He broke the tight end mold, apparently. So I don't know how a team that's so bad is going to get him all those yards. But 35-1 to win the division, 250-1 to win it all. It's pretty clear that they're going to be they're in for a long season, unless these other teams have regression due to injury or whatever.
Yeah.
Chaos. You choose chaos.
Yeah. This division is chaos.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the ignoring on the Atlanta front because I don't see what is there. I do think at the end of the day, Tampa probably just going to win it from, obviously whatever the football standpoint things. But, Carolina to me is a team that interests me anyway this year. Their defense, although not great, isn't really outright terrible in nature. I'm with you. You want to talk about the vengeance front. I think Baker Mayfield's going to probably play with about as big a fire you've seen under somebody in a while.
It's interesting that the Carolina is now the clear-cut favorite in that game, and they were not a month ago. They were not at all, and even up until a few weeks ago, I think the Browns were still like a 1-point favorite. So
and I'd be for entertaining more of New Orleans here, but up in whenever the news broke Monday or Tuesday about Michael Thomas again, I think I'm kind of now back off of New Orleans. That being said, could they surprise? Yeah, the defense is still good enough to cause some chaos. Offensively, I'm more of a Jameis guy than you are. He's not really my cup of tea, but I don't think he's exactly as bad as some people do make him out to perceive to be in a way.
Yeah, no, he is a quality NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he's serviceable at the end of the day, yeah.
He is not, it's kind of like, although they're completely opposite people, I kind of liken him to Vinny Testaverde.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a fair comp.
He was a quarterback that was tremendously talented out of college, came in, had very middling success in the pros, a lot due to having played for a poor franchise, and then in his latter years became a much more consistent, much more productive quarterback, got to an AFC championship with the Jets. I wouldn't be surprised to see, there's a lot of middling quarterbacks that have made Super Bowls and won Super Bowls. Trent Dilfer,
Mark Rippon.
Yeah, yes. Jeff Hostetler.
Yes.
So it can happen. It can happen. You can always have a year where it's just you have good luck or you have good variance or those tip passes end up being dropped and they're not intercepted.
But to me, this division this year from the future standpoint of things, this one definitely screams probably to me the waiting game of, getting 3 or 4 weeks in and kind of really reassessing at that point. Obviously, as you say, right? Cohen, look Tuesday morning after week 1, look Tuesday morning after week 2, kind of see how things have moved and stuff at that point. But there's nothing to me, this division right now is either do you bite the bullet and just lay enough money that the juice is worth the squeeze somehow in Tampa Bay, or do you just kind of roll with Carolina for the time being if you do it?
Well, if it were me
Yeah.
and I wanted to bet on Tampa Bay, I would hope that they lost one or two
Yes.
games early
Yeah.
and then get better odds.
Yeah, and that's where I feel this division really is.
If you're a believer
wait
in
a couple
the
weeks.
Saints or the Panthers, you want to get that money in earlier.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the AFC South, where it is chaos and violence. We have the Colts with Matty Ice. This is an interesting division for me because the Colts and the Titans, with Colts with Frank Reich, the Titans with Mike Vrabel, have two of the best coaches in the league.
Yeah.
And then you have the Jags and the Texans. And these are two rebuilding teams. And, of course, the Jags, everybody is very hyped on the Jags because they had such a bad coach last year, they can't possibly be as bad
Right.
as they presented. And you have the Texans in the same boat. They were getting rid of Deshaun Watson, and the franchise was just not able to accomplish anything until they got that off their books. And they suffered through the season, but they let all their guys play and get NFL experience. So what we're trying to do is evaluate whether these teams are going to be competitive in the division or not. I think this division is wide open. I'm not as high on the Jags as the public is. There are a lot of people thinking they can win the division. I'm not saying it's an impossibility, but it's going to be tough to beat the Titans, assuming Derrick Henry is around all year. And just Vrabel is such a good coach, he's not going to let that team get blown out. Frank Reich is going to do the best with what he has to work with. That's been the problem with the Colts the last 4 or 5 years. He actually, I think he maximizes the talent that he has, but he either gets injuries or just bad luck, even last year they almost beat the Bills, or 2 years ago. I'm sorry. I don't think the Colts are the favorite here. I think the Titans are the favorite. I actually would even throw $10 on the Texans maybe to win the division at 35-1, just for fun. But,
yeah, John, you're a man of culture right there. So Davis Mills stands. I'm looking at you right now.
That's
Join
right.
me. Put on your tinfoil hats with me. I really do like the Texans this year, honestly, in this division, only because of how, just as you mentioned, wide open it is. They are probably, despite they're still technically in this rebuild phase, they are somehow at the end of the day a very average NFL team. And for whatever reason, at least in my, I guess lifetime of this, and obviously even in my lifetime we've had division realignments and stuff like that happen, but for whatever reason, these AFC South teams tend to lend themselves to just allow chaos to reign for whatever reason the past really decade or so, especially. I don't understand. I think a lot of it, as you mentioned, has to do just with the division as a whole. I don't understand how the Colts can just be these dead set favorites. There's a lot to be desired there. Not so much, obviously, from the Frank Reich end of things. I 100% agree. He gets about as much as you can out of these guys, and sometimes at the end of the day, either just isn't enough or the injury front happens for him. The Titans, I'm not a fan of how their offseason fully went, to be honest. I think they're going to, and I'm a Derrick Henry guy. To me, he's pretty much, to me, he should be, your number one draft pick in a fantasy league at the end of the day. But relying on him too much, I worry about, how much longer he can take some of these hits.
I think Vrabel is a good manager of his roster.
Right.
That he knows not to he definitely knows not to overuse him.
The Jaguars intrigue me, not enough to really want to take a bite at them, though. They're a team that, to me, if you roll to week 3 and they're 2-1 or something like that, or and the odds become a little bit better for you, then maybe jump. But for now, I'm very much so pro Houston Texan. They were a team last year that, look, a lot of people wrote them off, and they were consistently in games.
Yeah,
they were the team that we were joking all the time last year with backdoor cover, and stuff like that. So, I see a lot of at least fight enough in that team to me that they're a complete enough package that they could really just run with the division and take it.
Yeah.
I'm not very high on the Titans.
Yeah.
Losing AJ Brown, Derrick Henry being Derrick Henry. I've never been a big Tannehill guy either, so I think they could regress.
Yes, they're definitely. I think they're going to need to have somebody step up in the receiving game in order for them to be successful. But I feel like with the schedule they were a number 1 seed last year. That's not happening again. That was only because the other teams in their division were so bad.
Yeah.
I feel like there's only one team in this division making the playoffs.
100%.
So but the question is who is going to rise up to the challenge. I don't know. It's
different question, but I do want to ask it quick. Is this the second division winner all time that we see get in at under 500 possibly?
I don't think so.
No. I could see it. In theory,
I guess. I mean, you could have an 8-9. You could have an 8-9 team.
Yeah.
The 17 games makes it so different.
Yeah.
So yeah, the South is.
The South is chaos.
Yes. All right. So I guess the North is next. Yes.
All right.
So we have the NFC Norris, the Packers, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Bears. I think the Packers are actually kind of disrespected this year publicly. 12-1 is actually pretty high for them. They were like 14-1 to win the Super Bowl last year. They've been 13-3 the last, or 13-4 the last 2 seasons. Whatever they've been right up there. Aaron Rodgers is 37 years old, but he came to camp looking like Nicolas Cage.
Don't disrespect an all-time great actor.
There you go. But their running game is solid. Their offensive line is getting older.
Mm-hmm.
They have a pretty good grasp on the division, in my opinion. However, they're not the team I like the best as far as betting goes. But it's hard. Like, I think compared to the Bucs, I think the Packers are very disrespected. The Vikings, I believe, are the team that is the value here. 40-1. I actually took a ticket on them at 50-1 to win the Super Bowl. They need Dalvin Cook to stay healthy. They need Kirk Cousins to like that and often. And I don't think plus 250 to win the division is good enough for me to put a bet on it. If that was like 400, I would probably put a bet on it. I like their chances. I mean, it's very common for them to split with the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can take care of business outside the division, they're a playoff team. I really think they are. The Lions are going to be improved. Dan Campbell, I think he's a player's coach, and they want to play for him. Their running game is going to be great. If you have, I don't know what the distribution is going to be, but if you have Lions running backs on your fantasy team, I think you're in for a good year. And, Jared Goff is Jared Goff, but if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt,
right,
Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook get hurt, you could be looking at a Lions division. You really could.
Yeah.
And then the Bears, I don't think they're as bad as everybody says they are, but they're not going to compete in this division. They got rid of Khalil Mack, sent him I almost said San Diego again, to the Superchargers. This is the team that they're going to just say, we're going out and we're playing our guys. We're going to see what we got and make adjustments from there. This is another team that just doesn't seem to have solved issues in the front office, which is sad because they have a really good fan base. I don't think 13-1 is enough to want to bet on the Bears to win the division.
No. Now, I think that's where I'm definitely going to disagree to a degree. I don't, you mentioned a key part with the Packers, right? That offensive line. I know Bakahari's out already.
Often.
Yeah.
Early and often.
And, there's a lot to be desired there. I'm admittedly not a Devontae Adams guy, period. But, you take away what is Rodgers' favorite target, that's going to be a tough one to swallow, at least in terms of, the deep ball.
All I can say is, as long as he's been there,
Mhm.
they've always found another receiver. They've always found,
That's true.
Go ahead.
Sammy Watkins, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns week 1. Then you won't hear from him.
um, I'm being honest. I think this might be, a little bit like me with the Texans. I just, something about Detroit. Now could I just be completely buying into the Man Campbell stuff? And, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not, but
He's 21st century Newt Rockne.
yeah. But, that being said, that, who knows? I mean, that sometimes we get teams, and this one is a little bit no matter what the sport is, they just don't know any better, and they end up going out there and, we're 6-3 at our bye week, like, stuff like that. But, yeah, the future's outlook on this is interesting. I think, the Minnesota one certainly is intriguing. As you mentioned, right, they're always somehow in it no matter what, in a way, whether it's via splits with the Packers or just, as I call it, the Kirk Cousins way of backing into games.
Yeah.
But this division's also just intriguing week to week because, as you mentioned, right, the past few years, I mean, even the Bears to a little bit of degree tend to just really play each other kind of close.
Yeah.
And like that's what really intrigues me about this division.
I can see the Bears covering a lot of games like the Texans did last year.
Yeah. I would hope if you're a Bears fan or if you're looking to find something in the Bears realm to bet for whatever reason, I would keep an eye on a lot of the Justin Fields stuff. I would anticipate with a new coaching regime in there. Obviously, the front office is still a bit of a mess, but at least with the coaching side of things, they're going to have things more geared towards him. So
Rushing yards.
Stuff's very, yes, exactly, intriguing to me.
Yeah, it's an interesting division. This was, we talk about the Lions and you talk about the Vikings and even the Packers being undervalued. This goes back to my theme about how I think the NFC is just wide open.
Yeah.
And
100%.
When it comes to who's going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, the Vikings are always in a playoff position at the end of the season. And it's not crazy for somebody backing into the playoffs to end up being in the big game.
100%.
So with that being said, let's move on to another good division, in my opinion, the AFC North. You have the Ravens as the favorite, 18-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Bengals, who are only 3 points away from a world championship last year, 20-1. I think they're kind of undervalued. The Browns, which have wavered hugely this year, the 35-1, and the Steelers, 80-1, and they were, 125-1, I think, earlier this summer. Mm-hmm. So they've moved down. I think this division is wide open, but I know you guys think a little differently about this division. I cannot believe that the Bengals are 20. They were pretty much, they've come down from 22-1, but for like the last month, they were sitting at 22-1 to win the Super Bowl. And I'm like, boy, I mean, they do have to beat the Chiefs. They do have to beat the Bills to get there. But, boy, that's a pretty high number, I think, for a team that is coming back better than ever.
100%.
And, the Ravens, they had a lot of injuries last year. If they're healthy all year, yes, they're going to be very difficult. The Browns are going to brown. Yeah. And I think the Steelers are going to be better than most people think. At like 12-1 to win the division, that might be worth a shot. But they're going to figure out their quarterback situation. They're not going to have a statue in the backfield anymore. Their running game is going to pick up. If their defense can keep them in games, I think the Steelers are going to be very competitive. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team, but I think they hang around in this division. You guys, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so to me, this division is a two-horse race, personally speaking, that being Baltimore and Cincinnati. To circle back to the Pittsburgh thing, I do understand certainly where you're coming from. I'm a big, frankly, Najee Harris guy. I do worry, though. To me, they didn't improve in the one spot where they really needed to exactly, and that's the offensive line. And it's not even so much Najee Harris, right? It doesn't matter to me if Trubisky's back under pocket or Pickett or Mason Rudolph, God forbid. But if those guys are on the run constantly because they just need to not get their head taken off, that's just going to be a constant struggle for them anyway.
My counterpoint to that is that defense with a mobile quarterback, the defenses will have to their schemes become much more difficult.
Fair, yeah, definitely. Well, definitely, yeah.
That's. I'm not saying that they still need help on the O-line,
Yeah.
but with Ben back there, it wasn't.
Right.
They could zone blitz the run, or they could just tee off on the quarterback.
Right. Cleveland's. You think about where this team was just last year, even with a hurt Baker Mayfield. And this isn't a knock against a guy like Jacoby Brissett. I tend to think he's a serviceable at this point backup. But that being said, it's backup. I as much as I don't think the Steelers are definitely in it, I do think that theoretically they should finish out of Cleveland. I think that I would avoid Cleveland outside of maybe just player stuff, and I would avoid them at all costs pretty much. Just the fact that the outside stuff circling with Deshaun Watson and everything going on with that, I think it's going to cast a big enough cloud.
So what I'm looking for out of Cleveland is this galvanized team that says, why not us? Mm-hmm. You can talk all the smack you want about our city, our front office. If they're galvanized as a team, look out. But I doubt that's going to happen.
Right.
I really doubt it.
Cincinnati definitely improved. Obviously, a lot of them does come down to health as well, though. You hope that Burrow is going to play, in theory, 17 games. Same with Chase, same with Mixon. But that being said, they did at least get a guy up front on the offensive line to bolster that and help out Burrow and Mixon. And the defense didn't lose too much. They pretty much are the same. But that being said, I like the vibe Baltimore is giving right now.
Cincinnati's scoring defense has not been great.
Well, no.
And, that they're a team that definitely is going to have to win by outscoring their opponents. And they did, with that Raiders game in the playoffs last year, they did hold up. But it'll be interesting to see. It's Cincinnati's scoring ability against the Baltimore defensive ability. Who's going to win? I can't tell you right now.
No.
I couldn't tell you.
But to be honest with you, I am very much so pro Baltimore in terms of winning the division. But that being said, if you come across a book that is offering just to make the playoffs, I think no problem. I think, to me anyway, nothing's a slam dunk, but I think, Baltimore and Cincinnati coming out of this division to make the playoffs, I think that's easily attainable.
I agree. Nate?
Yep, I'd like Baltimore a lot too, Paul. I think Lamar on a contract year this year, doesn't look like they're going to pay him before the season starts. I think he can have a big year.
Yeah. Maybe some Aaron Judge type stuff out of Lamar
Does
Jackson.
he get franchised? Could they franchise him at the end of the year?
Yeah. I think that's possible.
I remember Kirk Cousins was franchised for 3 years in a row by a certain team.
I was going to say I'm the perfect at least fan to chime in on that front. If they would like to copy their fellow Beltway brothers, yes, I could honestly. I could see that happening. Obviously, that's a different discussion, obviously, but from the business and football standpoint of things, absolutely, I could see them 100% doing that. That's something that front office would probably enjoy doing, to be honest.
That's sad.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to the leasts. We've got the NFC East. We've got the Cowpokes, the favorite at 20-1, or the favorite in the division. The Eagles. Down to 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Eagles, I'd read this week that they were the team that had the most dollars wagered on them to win the Super Bowl out of all the teams. Then we have the Commandos, or whatever nomenclature you like for the Washington football team, and the New York Little Giants with Brian Daboll, their new head coach from Buffalo. This division is sad. It's the Eagles' division to lose, in my opinion. Although any one of these teams could hop up and compete, I feel like the Cowboys are headed for like an 8-9 year. Washington and New York have to show something. Obviously, the Giants, who I believe has a very solid defense. They need 17 games with Saquon Barkley, and they need Danny Dimes and not Danny Pennies for most of the season. Washington needs Chase Young back. Is that going to happen? I don't know.
Well, he's on the PUP list, so.
But it's, Carson Wentz, again, this is a serviceable quarterback. Yeah. He's in that Jameis category. I mean, he might not have the tools of Jameis, but, he's an NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. That's what you can say about him. That could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, forget that he was a few years ago an MVP candidate until he got knocked out. Yep. So, I do agree. I think this is more or less Philadelphia's division to lose. That being said, really the only team I can't really see a really good path getting to it is the Giants. Yeah. Obviously, it's not like Washington's is that great, but I think at least on the Washington side of things, it might be more health as opposed to actual gameplay than anything else.
I will guarantee that Dable will do some crazy. I'm not talking necessarily like trick plays or trickeration or whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about like very bold in-game management coaching decisions. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, kneel inside their 5 and punt the ball away like they did last year. No. There's going to be some big, bold moves. And it's going to make, I think the Giants are going to be one of the teams, barring a bunch of injuries, that may become must-watch football because they're going to do some crazy stuff this year. Almost guaranteed. It'll just be a question of whether they're competitive or not.
Well, the perfect example of that is look what he did in Buffalo, and he's not as good as Josh Allen. He I don't think he will be, but Daniel Jones isn't exactly a good or a bad store brand option to Josh Allen by any means.
He doesn't look like Josh Allen running the ball, but he can run the ball.
He had the fastest speed trap last year. I mean, that's something I think we need to remember. But I do disagree a bit, even though it pains me to say that about the Cowboys. I don't foresee them finishing under 500. I could see them finishing, say, like 9-8 or 10-7. That being said, I am with you though. I think the Eagles are a tick better. Super Bowl contenders, not completely sold on that option yet, but to win the NFC, yes.
There is going to be a huge, again, going back to the theme of the NFC being wide open.
Yeah.
A huge push to get that number 1 spot in the playoffs and get the bye
100%.
And home field advantage to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And it could be, going into the last week of the season, it could be any one of like 4 or 5 teams. So I think it's going to be a crazy year in the NFC. I'm not saying the Giants are going to be in position for a number 1 seed going into the last week or anything like that, but I'm saying that the team from the NFC East could very well, the winner of that division could very well end up being a number 1 seed. But so could any of the other division winners, depending on how things go. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to have such an easy time winning their division.
No.
And I don't think the Cowboys or Eagles are going to have an easy time winning their division either. No. So you're going to have a bunch of 10-7, 11-6 teams fighting over that home field advantage. And it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So let's sorry, Nate.
No, you're good. I was thinking about Tyrod Taylor. Do you think there's a chance that Daniel Jones could get stapled to the bench at all this season?
You think he's going to get benched?
I mean, I don't want to fully, but to me, I think he's got to play like really bad football for Dable to even think about it. In my mind, anyway.
I have no I have no inclination of how he is perceived by the coaching staff.
Right.
I agree with you. Say that Dable might have to do something crazy, and I think it could be that.
Daniel
Jones is really bad.
I mean, Dable does have, we have to remember that. Dable does have a little bit of a notebook with Tyrod Taylor.
Yes, he does. And if they go to a short pass, run-heavy offense, the Tyrod Taylor fits that bill perfectly.
Right.
And both of those guys have to stay healthy. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's been a little snake-bitten, but Daniel Jones, he's got to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some running quarterbacks on that team, whoever they may end up being. Mm-hmm. So, on to the AFC East, our home turf, so to speak. The Bills are the favorites to win the whole enchilada, -230 to win the division. The Dolphins, 35-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Pats are right with them, 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. They're both the same to win the division. And then the Jets, 22-1 to win the division. Obviously, the Bills' division to lose. They match up really well against all these teams. I have issue. I've said this on the show before. I have issue with Tua's ability to stay healthy for 18 weeks. He hasn't done that since his very first season at Saban U. You know, he has an arthritic hip.
Yep.
I think he's lucky if he plays 12 games. That I don't wish injury on anybody. I have my own injuries to deal with. I don't wish injuries on anybody, but I don't see, unless he's managed, how he stays healthy all season long.
Yeah. I think collectively this division outside of Buffalo, there's just a lot to be desired, right? I mean, the Jets I think will be improved. Do I think they really exactly compete? Probably not. Will they be pesky all year? I can certainly see that, but
Yeah.
I don't really foresee them being true contenders. In a toss-up, just because of how close they are number-wise, I kind of give the edge to the Patriots over the Dolphins. But even then, they don't have like the wide receivers that the Dolphins have, for example. I think defensively, honestly, they're probably pretty even. So I think some parts of that still come down to X factor. But to me, Buffalo will be the end-all, be-all in this division in terms of, I think, coming out on top. And that's the tough thing about in this division. I think it's tough to find a really good, probably value point outright right away in it.
So the Bills, they're minus 230 to win the division there. I looked that up this morning, but the last time I checked, they were minus 200 to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get yourself a little better number
Right.
just for them to make the
Yeah.
playoffs. The Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets are going, if one of them wants to make the playoffs, they're going to have to dominate the other two teams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So there has to be a super strong number two for any of them even to sniff the playoffs. I do think the Jets' foundation is there.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Fireman Ed. He might need him to join the Make-A-Wish Foundation or something. But he's really suffered enough.
Yeah.
But the Jets, I mean, I like their coach. I think their future is promising. It's the Bills' time. The Bills have a 5-year window to win some Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And this year is shaping up to look really good. I almost put a ticket down on the Bills to win the Super Bowl at plus 650. I decided to wait. And if it turns out they lose a couple of games early, like they could easily lose to the Rams opening week.
Yeah.
Maybe I get a better number. So I've invested, I think I have like 7 NFC futures, NFC teams to win the Super Bowl. I think I'm guaranteed actually one of them making the playoffs. Anyway, it's the Bills' division to lose. I don't think there's any other team there that is going to sniff a Super Bowl. That one is pretty like the least. It's most exciting to talk about because the Bills are local to us, but it's probably the least interesting division.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not. They're like you said. I mean, I think it's pretty much what we're both saying. We're just going about it different ways. It's just like it's to be honest. I don't like labeling it this way. It's just a barren wasteland, pretty much outside like the Bills.
I actually believe I'm the hot take here, but the Bills could lose Josh Allen for a period of time and still win the division.
I'm with you. But then again, I'm
not saying that they would win the Super Bowl. I'm saying they would win the division.
But I also, I think a part of me is I still hope that Case Keenum can be like Case Keenum in Minnesota to a degree.
Hey, Keenan to Diggs.
Right.
Keenum to Diggs.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
I mean, Nate, you're also a Bills fan, so I'll toss over you quick in that realm.
Yeah, I won't bring too much Bills bias to here, but if you don't see the Bills win the division, or if you say a Josh Allen injury, you're going to see a lot of sad Western and Central New Yorkers in this area, and I'll be one of them. But yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head.
Sales of folding tables are way down.
Yeah, it's their division to lose. You guys hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get to our NFL juicy picks in a minute, but let's talk about some college football. Yeah. I didn't really do as much research on college as I did on pros, but I put up here are the favorites in college, now you have to remember to win the national championship, you got to make the playoff. And to this day, there are still only 4 teams that make the playoffs. And there are 3 very heavy favorites, as you can see on this list. We have Alabama at plus 180, Ohio State at plus 300, and Georgia at plus 425. And the thinking by the books is even if Georgia loses to Alabama in the SEC title game, they're still going to both make the playoffs like they did last year. So the big question is who's number 4 or who could sneak in that we're not thinking of right off the top. And, Clemson was hanging out around 14-1, and they've dropped down to 10-1. So there are a lot of people in the ACC that follow the ACC that think that teams like NC State, Miami of Florida can, maybe take over their spot in the ACC. And since Notre Dame plays 5 ACC teams every year, that, if they beat Notre Dame as well, that might push them into, a position. So, you talk about the big Power 5 conferences. There are basically, according to the books, a heavy favorite in each one.
Yeah.
So you've got Alabama and Georgia in the SEC. You've got Ohio State in the Big Ten. You've got Utah in the actually USC is actually higher
USC,
in the Pac-12. And then ACC, you've got Clemson. So what are your picks?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of this discussion off air a little bit. I'm not entirely sold on Ohio State this year. Like I said, I think they're going to be good. Don't get me wrong. I don't perceive them going 8-4 or anything like that. That being said, honestly, I like Michigan more than I do Ohio State. And that not only from the betting side but football side. So different discussions can be played out here, but to me, you look at a team, say like a Michigan, that's kind of hanging out in this 50-ish to 1 to 40-ish to 1. I know, depending upon what markets and books you're looking at, it's wavering.
It can vary
a little
quite a bit, actually. So shop around.
Yeah. So, look, to me, a team like Michigan, who we know what they can do. It's borderline a make or break year, I guess, in a way for Jim Harbaugh, to be honest. But I mean, they gave him an extension, so who knows? I guess. The SEC is going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a bit of a Wild West-ish type feel with them. At the end of the day, I still think maybe Alabama, Georgia, and the end of the day are probably still going to do it. But personally, for me, I keep an eye on the team, in all honesty, like Ole Miss. I know we don't have them up on the list.
Anybody that's not on this list right here is either 75 to 1 or longer.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Ole Miss is. They are 100 to 1.
Yeah.
Again, if you want to take a look at teams like maybe just beyond the outright favorites in each one, a team like North Carolina State, a lot of people are on high on them this year. I'm not exactly. I could be completely wrong. I know a team like Wake Forest, unfortunately, their odds have tanked since the news about I forget the quarterback's last name off the top of my head all of a sudden, but the news that he's going to be out indefinitely with a undisclosed health issue. So there's going to be some questions there. I know we go over this a lot. I do worry about the Pac-12. You talk about the realignment, and I know it's a different discussion entirely, but look, administrations play big roles in these teams at the end of the day still. When there's money to be had and money to be put on the table of these schools, things happen. I don't know what to make here because we're still talking about TV contracts with football games kicking off, later, well, I guess technically early tomorrow morning with, obviously the Big Ten opens it. But that being said, right, the fact that these discussions are on the table with the season getting going worries me with what people might be putting in other people's ears, especially in the Pac-12.
So we were going to talk about division realignment, but I think we're going to pass on that because we've gone way too long today. But I as far as betting college football, this is the one sport where you can really sit down and look at the schedules of all the teams and say, this team has a shot to go undefeated. This team, For example, I know you're not a Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame, Ohio State week 1.
Right, but yeah, I mean that's
If-
something we
if-
talked about
if
though.
Notre Dame wins that game for some reason,
Yeah.
they're on the inside track. There's my train.
To me though, they don't even have to win. If they keep that game in single digits, I think that puts them on an inside track as long as they win
If
out.
you're going to lose a game and try to make the playoffs, you want to lose
Yeah.
week 1.
Yeah.
You want to lose week 1.
Especially if it's a team perceived to be locked in anyway to
Yes.
the college football playoffs.
So, but there are certain teams that, if you get a team like, I'm just saying this off the top of my head and I don't know what their schedule is, but let's just say Louisville.
Right.
They're playing Syracuse in week 1. But let's say they don't get Clemson this year.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get Miami this year or whatever. They get an easy ACC schedule. If they work their way through, all of a sudden they're a championship playoff.
And the only time you have to face them would be, championship weekend at a neutral site.
Yeah. So there's lots of value. And again, this is another situation where you want to maybe look at the futures a couple of weeks into the season. There's teams like you said the secondary teams in the big divisions, such as like Oregon.
Yep.
We didn't even talk about the Big 12.
Right.
You've got a team like Baylor, 150 to 1, Michigan State,
Yeah.
150 to 1. These teams, 1 or 2 upsets, and all of a sudden they're a fast track to a playoff team.
Yep.
So, Nate, do you have any thoughts on college football this year, or are you more of a pro guy?
I'm definitely more of a pro guy, but I have trouble betting against Nick Saban. That's pretty much really what I go with Alabama. I know it's really chalky to hear,
the
but
one thing
I'm not a
about
huge college guy.
the one thing about Nick Saban, with all the success that he's had, for some reason he cannot recruit a kicker.
That's right. Yeah.
He always has like some walk-on kid that was in the Boy Scouts, or always wearing 99 and with a shirt that's 2 sizes, jersey 2 sizes too big.
I mean, to be fair, Ole Miss is employing that method this year, but with a frat boy.
I do have to say shout out to Ole Miss for winning the College World Series at 60 to 1, hotty toddy. So let's get to what everybody's patiently waited for, is our hot picks, predictions.
National championship football game. Right.
If you guys have a pick for this weekend in college football, I'm going to give you mine.
Yep.
I've already locked and loaded Utah State minus 26 at home against Connecticut.
Yep.
Do you guys have any picks for college football this week?
So for me, I've been jokingly calling our national championship game because Vanderbilt has made the long trek out to Hawaii. They've been there all week. That being said, it's Vanderbilt. If you're gonna take the safe route, take the home team. Hawaii's getting 9, but I don't hate Hawaii on the money line. They're currently sitting at plus 275 according to the one book I'm looking at. But also because I'm just that much of a psychopath, I do like Charlotte as well on the road.
I actually
Atlantic.
have a bet pending on Hawaii on the spread. So I'm with you. And that game is an early start at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
So
also, I'm that much of a psychopath that I do need to shout out what will be a sold-out Sun Bowl in El Paso for North Texas and UTEP.
Mean Green. All right, NFL Week 1.
Yeah.
I'm not a preseason NFL bettor. We could have a whole episode on why you should or shouldn't bet preseason. But I looked at the Week 1 lines. Originally, the Bills and the Rams were about to pick 'em, but that's moved in the Bills' favor, and I really want to stay away from that game.
Yeah.
I like Tampa Bay at Dallas. Tampa Bay is -1. I think I'm going to hit Tampa Bay -1. And Tom Brady, the masked quarterback, he hopefully will bring some heat to Jerry World.
Right. So there's a couple. Obviously, Week 1 of the NFL tends to be, I wouldn't say a true toss-up of sorts, but things can get interesting quick depending upon how things who gets cut where, and always those mysterious final couple day of training camp injuries tend to pop up. But that being said, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to, I guess, lock in with the way I've been doing it. But Houston's getting 8.5 at home against Indianapolis. I really do love that spot for the Texans.
Yep, we said that they were going to be a cover machine this year. So.
Yeah.
Nate, what you got?
Excuse me, they're Steelers plus 6.5. I think a good AFC North game
Against the
on
Bengals,
week
right?
1. Yep, against the Bengals. Yep.
Yep.
I think, especially if they go with Mitch, I think the kind of history with Mitch can prevail there, and they can cover that spread. Not necessarily win that game, of course, but you'll have a close game there, especially in division game week 1.
All right, so let's do a quick round of futures. I am going. I've kind of given away my game already, but Vikings at 45-1, Raiders at 40-1, and I believe I have Carolina Panthers to win the division at 15-1. Those are my futures. I have a couple of college football futures, but nothing that I'm really excited about that I want to share here.
Understandable. Don't blame me there. Yeah, I mean, I rode with them. I think if you want to get crazy, I will be more than willing to help you back up the Houston division front future.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. That's definitely a fun sweat.
But other than that, I'm definitely going to go ahead and do the Raiders division future, as well as the 49ers future.
Division?
To go the safe route division. Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, for me personally, I know I mentioned it already, but I tend to wait championship wise, no matter what the sport is, until we get for obviously the NFL, it's a couple weeks in or a few weeks in, and kind of reassess from there.
Yeah, those are both potential winners.
I only have that one you were talking about with the Ravens, Paul, to win the division, and then that one I talked earlier with the Bills and the Eagles both to make the playoffs. Those are my only futures. Nothing too crazy for me, but I'll still survey the market.
Yeah, that's the whole point,
right?
Is that you might actually find your best bet halfway through the season. So anything else? I'm going to give out a crazy future for you guys. I'm not even sure what it's at. I'm guessing it's probably going to be about 12 or 15-1, and that is the Hamilton Tiger Cats to win the Grey Cup in the CFL. For those of you not familiar with the CFL, there's an East and a West division, and the East is horrible this year. I think the team that is actually leading the division is 4-5, and one of those teams is going to represent the league in the Grey Cup in the championship game. And of those 4 horrible teams, Hamilton, I think, is the best by far. And 15-1 is really juicy since there's only 9 teams in the league. 9-1 would be average. So that's my secret pick for the rest of the CFL season. So hopefully you'll catch that at Thanksgiving.
If only we did this podcast a month ago, I could help everybody out by telling you, take Baltimore Orioles to make the playoffs. But alas, we simply are probably across that bridge too much already, given how they're playing. So I will go back to my NASCAR well for everybody on this front. If there is ever a driver in NASCAR to just enjoy the quote-unquote middle finger to society, it's Kyle Busch. Obviously, a lot of contract stuff, and normally that'd be a place where I would maybe kind of stay away. But that being said, Kyle Busch is currently sitting at 9-1 to win the Cup title this year.
Is he in the playoffs?
He is. He's locked in already. He's had a rough summer. That being said, he tends to rise up pretty good when playoff time comes. So I think Kyle Busch, if you want to, venture a little bit out of the gray area a little bit and into an uncomfortable zone for people, I think him at, I know the book I'm looking at currently has him at 9-1 to win the play.
And that's another example of, as the playoff system goes, they have the round of 16 and the round of it. So like if he has a bad race, his odds might improve, might become juicier.
Yeah.
And you could pick him up, and then he comes back and advances. So, very interesting. I didn't even think about that. Nate, is there any special jam that you want to share with anybody?
No, nothing too crazy for me. Just getting ready for NFL season. Pretty excited.
All right.
I love it.
So before we head out, I want you both to talk about your other podcasts.
Sure.
I know for a fact that, well, you're on both of them. Nate, you're on the Concrete Jungle, and then what is the golf podcast?
Out of Bounds.
Out of
Josh
Bounds.
So yep.
So tell us about that.
We started that one about month and a half ago. Paul is also the producer. You'll hear him from some of his Ricky Fowler takes.
Yeah, I'm the Ricky Fowler truther on the podcast.
But Josh and I have had a lot of fun, especially with all the news coming out of the Live Tour.
Yeah,
it's made it a lot easier to talk about.
I do not bet golf. I know very little about golf, and I know it's like I think it's the second most popular sport to bet on after football.
Yep. I think
at least in North America.
Yeah, golf's hard to bet on, especially early in pre-tournaments is really
So,
tough. I've had some good luck with top 20s, top 40s.
When we get back in the new studio, we'll have to talk about golf on an episode.
And we'll have to have Josh talk about his system. He had a little system earlier in the year where he was betting, on the late days, Friday or early Saturday after he had watched a little bit, and he had gone a little bit successful through that. So I've always been interested in that kind of theory.
And why don't you tell us about Concrete Jungle?
Yeah, it's been really fun. Obviously helps. I'm a big baseball guy. It's certainly my number one sport. Myself and our sports director, Kyle Evans, we have a lot of fun. We a couple of times a week during the regular season, we take a look at what the Yankees and Mets are doing, but also, we highlight the minor league teams, Rochester Red Wings and the Syracuse now Mets. But, it's a lot of fun. It certainly, especially on the minor league side of things, there's just not a lot of talk in terms of localized stuff on it. So it's been a lot of fun to do. And then, we also got a couple, other stuff in the pipeline. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but, once we get everything kind of situated out with our new studio, Nate and Kyle will be doing a Bills-focused podcast.
Oh, nice.
And I know we're trying to, figure out some stuff to maybe get, a hockey one involved with, with the Sabres and Amherst.
I'll be involved in that.
Yeah, so, look, we got a lot of fun stuff here over at FL1, and,
I do have to
say,
say, for the last few years, I've learned so much about. I like that you do so much local programming here. I have a really niche. This has been a really niche podcast, and we don't have an explosive audience. But sports betting is getting more and more popular every year. But I've learned so much about the area and lots of things to do and lots of resources just by news resources and everything just by tuning in here. So thank you, everybody, for spending time with me in this studio. It's been 4+ years. I'll be back when the new studio is ready to go. Hopefully these guys will be with me. We're going to have some fun betting on football. You can follow all of my picks on the BetStamp app under my name on BetStamp is Buffalo66. So if you want to see what I'm betting on, when I'm betting on it, you can see every bet I ever make. I'll be back when the time is right and look forward to spending more time with you, and I hope we learn some more stuff. So take care, everybody. We're going to play the outro for you, and we'll see you on the football field.